Cory, I want to start with you. I mean, initial reaction is, hey, Penn State got a win. Boise State, they were able to keep Boise State at an arm's length, but it felt like it should have been more of a dominant win.
Hey, it's a good win. We're in uncharted territory no matter what here. When you're Penn State's up 14 to nothing early, you're thinking, okay, this is going to kind of get out of hand. They're going to blow them out. And yet, Boise scores a touchdown there that would have made it 24-21. Huge hands to the face penalty that negated that touchdown. I mean, that was a gigantic play in the game. I give Boise a lot of credit for their fight. But look, Penn State's got a lot of good players. We're going to talk a lot on this show, I'm sure, about Abdul Carter because that will be a significant component in the next round. Because Penn State's defense was just not the same without Abdul Carter. Boise really moved the ball pretty well. That's a concern. But look, Penn State's got a lot of good players. It's a good win. And hey, James Franklin does not lose I was watching the game, guys, with some Penn State fans. One guy was all nervous there. James Franklin does not lose these games. This isn't Ohio State or Michigan. When he's favored by 12, James doesn't lose these kinds of games.
Yeah, I wasn't surprised by the outcome so far. This has been my best score prediction, spread prediction yet for the college football playoff games we've seen. I thought Penn State would win, cover, and Boise State would be competitive, but you'd always feel like Penn State was the better team and kind of keep them at an arm's length, which is what they did. I think even if that touchdown had made it 24-21, I think that changes the feeling of the game. I don't think it changes the outcome of the game. But Cory, you mentioned that Abdul Carter went off and it felt different for Penn State's defense. On the one hand, yeah, I agree. On the other hand, they still only give up 14 points. Maddox Madsen had thrown 3 picks all season long. And for those, I'm not in this camp particularly, but for those that are of the belief that, well, Boise State just shouldn't be treated this way because they're playing the Mountain West and it's a higher level of competition, they have a lot of fodder after this game. A lot. Genty is 104 yards on 30 carries. Maddox Madsen throws the same number of picks as he had all season long. It looked like a team that was going up against a caliber of opponent that since Oregon, they just hadn't really consistently faced. Now, I am not opposed to Boise State being in this playoff for a couple of reasons. Number one, I value the regular season above all else. And so I would like to see the most deserving teams get in, not who we think are the best. Because I think bowl season has taught us here, guys, just because you think someone's better or you think someone's the best team of a group doesn't mean that they are. Bama lost as a double-digit favorite again. So I'm in favor of that. And number two, I think that Boise State's resume was actually pretty darn good. If you look at UNLV beating them twice, that's not a small thing. I'm not saying it's equivalent to winning the SEC of the Big Ten, but it's not a small thing. They did take the number one team down to a game-winning field goal on the road. If Oregon had made an extra point earlier in the game, it actually only would have been a 1-point win for Oregon. Not that that changes the calculus entirely. So I thought Boise deserved to be there. I think this game was closer than the final score indicated, but I'm not surprised by the outcome because Penn State's a better team.
So Spencer, let me just get a quick rebuttal from you. Where, in terms of strength of victory from this, on a scale of 1 to 10, what would you say that you would rate this for Penn State?
If 10 is what's 10 exactly?
Like, in terms of value, the way that they won the game, you're saying, hey, Boise State's from the Mountain West Conference. Should they have been the 3 seed, right? There were some questions because people are going to say that this is a Mickey Mouse playoff run. Okay, and that's what,
Yeah.
and you started to allude to that a little bit. I don't want to look just over this Boise State team because I feel like they could have given some problems to some other teams. Penn State just happened to be in a good position to beat this Boise State team. I'm not discounting the Broncos here. They certainly have flaws that wouldn't let them go on a run, but they're going to say, oh, well, Penn State played SMU. Penn State played Boise State. Should they have really made it to the semifinals? So what would you rate this on a scale of 1 to 10 based on the way Penn State performed?
Well, and for that crowd, I'd remind you that Penn State has beaten those opponents by a combined score of 69-24. Like, what does a playoff team look like in that particular setting of this easier
Not Alabama
playoff path? Yeah, I mean, excuse me. So I'd probably say this is like on a scale 1 to 10. This is like a 7-8, like a really good score. Not great, not oh my gosh, best performance ever, because it certainly felt like it could have been more, but it also could have been closer. So I think this is a win you look at and say, yeah, Penn State looks like a team that can go to the national championship game. I don't care if they get Georgia with Gunnar Stockton or Notre Dame as is. I don't see, with the way Penn State is playing, how they can't win that game and play for a national championship, which is not something I would have said about Penn State during the season. But in the last month, they're playing really good football. And their only loss is to the only team in college football who, knock on wood, please don't let this change tomorrow, only team that hasn't lost in the country this year, that being my Oregon Ducks, of course. And they lost by 8 points, and yeah, they were down in that game, but they played really well. They moved the ball on a great defense all game, and they keep moving the ball. So, yeah, I think it's hard to not feel good about Penn State at the moment.
Cory, how much stock are you putting into this win over Penn State? Because the same idea, that's the comments that I'm seeing mainly on X, right? I'm trying to drive this conversation based on what are other people saying. For Penn State, SMU, Boise State, did they deserve to be here? Should they have been seeded as highly? Whatever have you. How much stock do you put in this game when Penn State's really going to get a test? Georgia or Notre Dame, one way or another. I think that's a close game either way, and that's the best opponents that Penn State's going to see since Oregon and Ohio State.
Well, there's two conversations here. One, Penn State did everything it had to do. This is not necessarily even so much a Penn State discussion. I mentioned earlier, kind of half jokingly, but in all seriousness, James does not lose these games. The reason Penn State fans get angry at James is because he loses games against elite teams or teams that have maybe a little bit better talent. They were a 12-point favorite in this game. The question is, should a number 6 seed ever be a 12-point favorite over a number 3 seed? And the answer is unequivocally no. This was botched so badly. There's no way in the world that Boise should be a number 3 seed. I'll give Boise credit. I don't take anything away from Penn State. This system has to be fixed. You cannot have Boise be a number 3 seed and be a 12-point underdog, and get a bye. But again, that's a different conversation. Penn State, from the Penn State side, the reason James doesn't lose these kind of games, we can joke all we want, Zach, and a lot of people maybe do about the 1-0 mentality, but there are a lot of schools around the country that don't have a 1-0 mentality. All right, they get up for the big games and then they shrink for the small games. And to James's credit, I think the single best thing that he does as a coach is he gets his players ready to play every single game. And for that reason, you don't lose to SMU. You don't lose to Boise. Whether they lose to Georgia or Notre Dame, that's a different discussion. But Penn State's in this position because, quite frankly, they got unbelievably lucky. I think it was tremendous that they lost the Big Ten championship game. Rather than playing Ohio State tomorrow, they played Boise State today. So, but again, that's a different discussion that the college football playoff has got to get fixed.
And their fans got treated to a home playoff game.
Yeah.
I mean, even if it had been a hard-fought win, Penn State's going, good thing we didn't win that conference championship game. That would have been a mess.
Yep.
Yeah, that would have been the wrong thing to do. What the heck were we thinking there? No, it's a systematic failure here, and I know that they're reevaluating it. All right, let's talk actual, box score, game results here. I mean, Penn State 31-14 over Boise State here. Like I said, they were able to keep them at arm's length. Now, Boise State did end up outgaining them in terms of total yardage here, but that has to do with, big plays at the end. I look at the fact that, hey, Penn State forced 3 interceptions. They had the 1 fumble recovery from Ashton Genty. Honestly, should have had another convenient timing for the offensive lineman. But Penn State forced 4 turnovers against a team that does not turn the football over. That's the MO. They play disciplined football. They don't commit any penalties. They win with those demoralizing, sustainable drives. And Penn State shut down Ashton Genty. I was spot on when I said, hey, Ashton Genty is going to get over 100 yards. He did, but it was going to take him 30 or 35 carries to do so. Tom Allen made it his life's mission to make sure that Ashton Genty did not have a Heisman-like performance, and they succeeded. Now, in the process, though, which we will, I imagine we're going to talk about it in the upcoming segments, but yes, they did deal with some bumps and bruises, Abdul Carter, of course, but the way that Penn State played this game, defense over the past 2 weeks against SMU and Boise State now phenomenal. Question marks about the offense. Play calling, I made a joke that, hey, former offensive coordinators at Penn State would have approved of this play calling. I agree that Andy Kotelnicki did not have his best game. But Boise State did make adjustments. Like let's be honest here. Penn State went up 14-0. They could have rolled over. And Cory, I do respect what Boise State did to make its adjustments to make it a little more difficult. Like they got pressure on Drew Aller. I have not seen Drew Aller under that much duress all season long, including games against Oregon and Ohio State.
Here's the thing, Zach. Just run the ball. That's what I'm hearing from every Penn State fan. Just go run the damn ball. Key play in the fourth quarter.
Call Brent Key.
It's 3rd and 1. You've got a
He's not busy.
You got a 6'5", 240-pound quarterback. You got Katron was averaging 9 yards a carry at the time. It's 3rd and 1. You could kind of pretty much seal the game right there, and yet they throw a pass. It's those kinds of plays where Penn State just gets too cute. Andy Kotelnicki gets a little too cute. And again, I think if Penn State would have just come out and said, we're going to run the ball down your damn throat, I don't think Boise would have been able to stop it. But at the same time, Drew threw three touchdowns. And quite frankly, even though his completion percentage wasn't great, I thought he put the ball on the money a bunch of times. Amari couldn't handle a tough catch. Yeah. Harrison Wallace couldn't handle it. Those were great. Those were NFL caliber throws. So, I mean, there was a lot of things to like about the offense, but the play calling, Zach, I got Penn State fans yelling at me, why don't they just run the dang ball?
Well, Cory, can I join that crowd retroactively? I was yelling at my TV, like, what are you doing? Yeah. Like, you're running the ball at an incredible rate, which I'll touch on in a moment. But my favorite play call, the magnum opus of Andy Kotelnicki's game plan in this game, or unwillingness to just turn around and hand the freaking football off. 3rd down and 1. Let's go fake tight end sneak, toss to Drew Aller, throwback screen to Tyler Ward. Like,
that's beautiful.
Yo, man. Let's hand it off. Now, that's very simplistic sometimes. Well, they know you want to run it on 3rd and 1. Okay, fair enough. I think they knew you wanted to run it at the end of the game when Nick Singleton broke a 58-yard touchdown. They knew you wanted to run the ball. It didn't matter. Boise State got pressure because they did what they have done all year. Their blitz packages are really good. They are you talk about play calling offensively a lot and not enough defensively. The way that they scheme their blitzes is really good. The way they stunt, overload the side, they are well timed, they are well coached, they mix it up, they will come after you, and sometimes Kotelnicki had an answer. I thought his best play call was the second touchdown to Tyler Warren. He saw that Boise had been blitzing over and over. So what did he do? He went max protection and said, we're going to have just a 4-man route and a 6-man protection to make sure Aller's got enough time. He had just enough time, and he gets Tyler Warren in a 1v1 who makes a phenomenal catch. But I'm glad you brought up the completion percentage. Aller 13-25. Man, could his receivers give him just a little bit of help? I mean,
Would you guys agree with me? A couple of those throws, again, one to Amari, one to Harrison Wallace. Those were gorgeous throws.
They're perfect.
NFL receivers.
They're perfect. They're perfect. Now, none of these that we're talking about here were easy catches, but I can think of 4 balls off the top of my head, not even going through the whole game and having it memorized like I have an eidetic memory or something. But I can think of 4 where at least 2 of those should be caught. Maybe not 4, but 2 or 3 of those should have been caught. Aller was putting it on the money. The first touchdown to Tyler Warren was beautiful, but I want to go back to the running game for a moment. But I think we're gonna pause. But I'm locked and loaded with thoughts here, Zach Seyko.